Hello again. This is Larry Hayden. Welcome to the Larry Hayden Podcast. This is episode 27, and the topic is the end times. Please listen till the end when I'll give you resources to learn more. The Bible has a lot to say about the end times. Nearly every book of the Bible contains prophecy regarding the end times. Before I begin, a vital concept to be understood about the end times is the Bible clearly teaches there will be two totally different judgments over which Jesus will preside. The first judgment is known as the judgment seat of Christ. During this judgment, only born-again Christians will be judged. During the other judgment, known as the Great White Throne Judgment, only unbelievers will be judged. More about these judgments later. Now here's what the Bible declares will happen in the end times. First, Christ will remove all born-again believers from the earth in an event known as the rapture. That is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 and 1 Corinthians chapter 15. For an in-depth discussion of the rapture, please listen to episode 4 of this podcast. Realize that at the judgment seat of Christ, these believers will be rewarded for good works and faithful service during their time on earth, or will lose rewards but not eternal life for lack of service and obedience. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Following the rapture, a person known as the Antichrist, also known as the Beast, will come into power and will sign a peace covenant with Israel for 7 years. That's according to Daniel chapter 9. This 7-year period of time is known as the tribulation. During the tribulation, there will be terrible wars, famines, plagues, and natural disasters. God will be pouring out his wrath against sin, evil, and wickedness. About halfway through the 7 years, the Antichrist will break the peace covenant with Israel and make war against it. The Antichrist will set up an image of himself to be worshipped in the Jerusalem temple, which will have been rebuilt. That's Daniel chapter 9 and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. At the end of the 7-year tribulation, the Antichrist will launch a final attack on Jerusalem, culminating in the Battle of Armageddon. This battle would be so severe and terrible, we see in Matthew 24, Jesus says, "For then there will be great tribulation such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be." At Armageddon, Jesus will return, destroy the Antichrist and his armies, and cast them into the lake of fire. That's Revelation chapter 19. Christ will then bind Satan in the abyss for 1,000 years, and Jesus will rule his earthly kingdom for this 1,000-year period. Revelation chapter 20. At the end of the 1,000 years, Satan will be released, defeated again, and then cast into the lake of fire for eternity. That's Revelation 20, verses 7 through 10. Christ then judges all unbelievers. Revelation 20, chapters 10 through 15, at what is known as the Great White Throne Judgment, casting them all into the lake of fire. Christ will then usher in a new heaven and a new earth and the new Jerusalem, the eternal dwelling place of believers. There will be no more sin, sorrow, or death. Revelation chapter 21. Now please allow me to speak to you from my heart. I'm 80 years of age. The purpose of my podcast is to impart wisdom learned over my long life to be of a benefit to you. Life is a very serious business, and death even more so. In this podcast, I emphasize the two completely different judgments of Christ and the two completely different consequences. If you are not sure which of the judgments you will be in, please study the Bible New King James Version is a good choice. And learn to be absolutely certain that you will be included in the judgment seat of Christ and receive rewards, and not in the great white throne judgment reserved for unbelievers and Satan. Also, please listen to episode 4 of my podcast entitled Your Second Birth. Now, here are the resources I mentioned to learn more about God and the Bible. I recommend 3 reliable online websites. First, go to gotquestions.org. You'll find reliable answers to over 700,000 Bible questions, and this site reflects the worldwide conventional conservative Protestant viewpoint. Next, go to alwaysbeready.com by the excellent Bible scholar Charlie Campbell. And finally, visit my website, larryhaydenpodcast.com. And this concludes the podcast. Thanks for listening, and I wish you peace always.